She was worried about potential ethical problems. A Wall Street Journal editorial says the notes confirm many fears, saying, quote, this excerpt and all the potential conflict it describes, plus Chelsea's warnings about business hustling at foundation events, would seem more than ample cause to trigger an IRS audit of the foundation. Joining me now, Glenn Hall, U.S. news editor for the Wall Street Journal. So this is the editorial board writing a big piece about the WikiLeaks documents dump, saying we don't condone the practice of hacked, stolen information, but now that it's out there, we have to talk about it. It's been a big week for those dumps. Glenn, what do you think, bottom line, is the biggest headline to emerge? Well, the one that the editorial board was talking about is probably the most significant we've seen of all the WikiLeaks documents that have come out. This is Doug Band, longtime aide to President Clinton when he was in the White House and after, stayed with him, revealing in very detailed terms how he and his partners both raised money for the foundation as one of the major fundraising groups, and also steered business to Bill Clinton, over $100 million worth of business opportunities, and in many cases detailed how they were doing this with the same group of donors, asking them to do both things. Is it illegal? Not clear that it's illegal, but what the risk was that Chelsea Clinton was flagging, and the lawyers that this was a memo to were concerned about whether there was enough distance between the charitable contributions and the for-profit contributions, and whether their charitable status of the foundation was in any way put in jeopardy. Because you have to earn that status to keep it. And there are clear laws about keeping a distinction between your for-profit and your non-for-profit activities, and were those lines blurred? That's the big question. The Attorney General of New York State took a look at Donald Trump's charity, and because of that, the charity had to stop fundraising in this particular state. What do you think questions should be raised about the status of the Clinton Foundation, and do you expect to see any of those questions officially raised by the IRS or otherwise? Well, so far we haven't seen that happen. And in many cases, like with the, you just mentioned, with the Schneiderman's look at Donald Trump's foundation, that was initiated not by the IRS, but by the New York State Attorney General. And the other ones we saw were also in Florida, where there was questions raised. So you could expect the possibility that, there are state attorneys general that might take a look at it, but here we're also talking about politics, right? And whether you're a Democratic Attorney General or Republican Attorney General, and a Democratic White House and IRS, we've seen that there haven't been as much follow through on some of these things as we would have expected on the FBI side and other things. There have been a lot of criticisms that the Obama administration was assisting the Clintons. What's your assessment of how much this hurts Hillary Clinton or her campaign? Well, I think it is, as I said before, one of the most significant documents to come out, and it certainly plays into this narrative, but it's not a new revelation. It's just the more serious, side of the information that we're getting. So I don't think it changes the narrative in any way, but it does keep that question alive about the way the Clintons behave and operate. It's interesting, in the editorial board piece in the Wall Street Journal, it ends on this question. What emails or memos exist that these hackers, Russian or not, could be withholding for leverage after the election with another President Clinton? And you really could, that question could be raised really for any of the candidates that win, what the Russians have, what these hackers have, and how we might be in a new normal, Glenn, on that. Well, and the same might be said of Donald Trump and what kinds of interwoven activities that he's been involved in as businessman. How will that come back to haunt him as a president? All of those relationships and so forth. Big problems for the Clintons. That's one of the big questions that you look at for her as president. Which entanglements, and how can the foundation continue to exist with all of the donors and global leaders and all of that have come into it? How do you maintain the independence for both of these candidates? It's a big question. It is a big question. And even though we were talking so much about this going up to voting day, we realize it will not be over. I think that's November 8th. Glenn, thank you very much. Great to see you. Well, if you love broccoli, John, do you love broccoli? Yeah, I do, actually. I'm kind of fair on it, but after this, I might actually eat a lot more of it, in fact. Works for me. There's a reason that you should have more broccoli. In experiments on mice, scientists discovered that broccoli contains a natural compound that seems to turn back time, in a manner of speaking. The study published by Washington University reports that an enzyme boosted the mice's metabolism, reduced weight, sharpened eyesight, improved blood sugar. In short, those mice didn't act their age. More study needs to be done to determine the benefits for humans, but it might just be enough for all of us at this point. I'm with it. Donald Trump trailing Hillary Clinton by more than 5 points in the Real Clear Politics average of national polls, and he's behind in many of the critical battleground states.
So what does he need to do to brace his supporters for a potential loss on election night? Well, he's doing nothing. In fact, he's insisting the whole thing is a sham.
The best evidence that the system is rigged is the fact that Hillary Clinton, despite her many crimes, was even allowed to run for president in the first place. You see these polls where they're polling Democrats. How's Trump doing? Oh, he's down. They're polling Democrats. The system is corrupt, and it's rigged, and it's broken.
Folks, what's going on here? What's going on? Our country is rigged, it's crooked, and it's broken.
Job-killing Obamacare is just one more way the system is rigged. She lives the high life at your expense, making money off the rigged system, and it is a rigged system. Are you starting to agree with me about the rigged system?
Let's bring in Judy Miller, Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter, author, and Fox News contributor. Lynn Sweet is Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. Welcome to both of you. We have heard, Judy, that rigged system line quite a few times, but it's coming more and more frequently now. What is the purpose, would you guess, from Donald Trump?
Well, I think the purpose is that it's simply more convenient for Donald Trump to blame the rigged system and the rigged polling system and the rigged polls than it is to face up to the facts that if those polls hold and they are accurate, then he will wind up being the presidential race's biggest loser. I mean, that is something that is just antithetical to the Trump brand. So, of course, he wants to add pollsters to his ever-growing list of enemies. I mean, Donald Trump's enemies list rivals Richard Nixon. You have Hillary Rodham Clinton and other career politicians. You have the elite media. That's us, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. You have bankers, finance people. You have rich donors. Now you have pollsters. Of course, blame people who are giving you the bad news. It's vintage Trump. He did find time, however, even though he's no longer investing in his own campaign. He gave zero money, according to the last financial data that have been disclosed, but he did find time to start up Trump Tower TV on Facebook. So I think we see the future in Donald Trump.
But Lynn, one of the criticisms of longtime political watchers is that if you tell people, your own supporters, that the system is rigged and the fix is in and there's corruption everywhere, maybe even your own supporters aren't going to go out and vote for you because they think it's a done deal that you're not going to win.
See, that's the surprising lack of information that flowed down to Donald Trump, that when you talk about voter suppression, which Michelle Obama did in campaigning with Hillary Clinton yesterday in North Carolina, it cuts both ways. If you say the system is rigged, it could do two things. It could motivate the turnout of your opponent, which is how the Clinton forces, and Michelle Obama is a big one of those forces, is trying to use it. If you're a Trump supporter and your guy keeps telling you the election's over, you're not helping your own turnout. So it's another self-inflicted wound. But I just want to go back one quick point about the polls. Trump lived by the polls during the primary. It was basically his Trump speech saying how well he was doing. In primaries, they only poll Republicans. In a general election, it's true, you poll Democrats, you also poll Republicans and independents. Hasn't the message gotten through to him?
But, Judy, to be fair, the stories, when you look at the media analysis of the stories coming out against Donald Trump, by far the preponderance of the reporting about Trump is negative.
Actually, that's true, and yet a new study that was done by the Kennedy Center, at Harvard, suggested that Donald Trump's coverage, especially in the beginning, was far more positive than Clinton's, and that Clinton's coverage was really very, very negative. Look, at this point, the issue is if independents are going to decide this race, and clearly they are, and you know that you have to reach them, is talking about a rigged system the way to do that? Having alienated women, and particularly older women, having alienated Hispanics, having not convinced black Americans that you're going to make their lives better and that they're currently living in a hellhole, as he says, you're only left with kind of uneducated white men as your base. And independents will not respond, I don't think, to the rigged system message, but we'll see.
Is it possible, Lynn, that there could be a surprise at the end of this election, despite the polling, despite the battleground states and so forth, and the projections that Hillary Clinton is going to win this in a romp?
Well, we're in the midst of a surprise right now, and every day there's a new batch of WikiLeaks that are coming out. We're in day 21. So the Clinton campaign has to deal with these emails that are damaging to the campaign because they lift up the curtain on the inner workings of the Clinton Foundation and of Bill Clinton's paydays. Now, if Donald Trump had big-name surrogates who want to just stay on message and flood the zone in events in swing states, local TV, that's usually what campaigns do. I think we've spent a lot of time throughout this campaign season in saying this isn't a typical campaign. So, yeah, we're in the midst of an October surprise.
Yeah.
It's just a multi-day surprise.
There have been a lot of surprises all the way through, and I just wonder whether there might be another one November 8th. But we'll see. Lynn Sweet.
There could be.
Judith Miller, thank you both.
Thank you.
Well, new battleground state polls with Election Day just 11 days away, what they mean for both candidates in the final sprint of this campaign. Well, this breaking now, Iraqi forces taking aim at a town just south of Mosul where ISIS has reportedly carried out dozens of executions in an apparent attempt to keep the population from joining the U.S.-led offensive. Benjamin Hall is live in Erbil, Iraq with the very latest. Benjamin?
Hi, Jenna. Well, while all the focus is on the offensive for Mosul city itself, out west by the Syrian border where we just were, things are very different. ISIS remains on the offensive. They will continue to attack Kurdish forces with hundreds of troops and dozens of VBIDs, and that has been called the Forgotten Front. We were out there and we met U.S. Special Forces veteran David Shumack, 62 years old, from Florida. He's been fighting alongside Kurdish forces, and they've been under heavy fire and artillery almost daily, and they're getting no support.
We've received no support, actually. In the year that I've been here with General Haqqar, we've never seen an American officer or an official come to this front line.
Now, that front line overlooks the main ISIS supply route to Mosul, and the men here say that they can watch 500 ISIS cars move back and forth, resupplying that city. But there's nothing they can do. Their rules of engagement forbid them from going for those cars, which is quite amazing. Now, we saw something else out there today, and that is the graves that ISIS left behind where they buried the many thousands of Yazidi people that they murdered. One of the many mass graves that has been found in the area. It's hard to imagine how hundreds of people at a time were rounded up at their villages and brought here into this barren landscape, lined up against a trench and systematically shot. But that is exactly what's happened, and you can see the evidence. You can see the bullet holes in the skulls. You can see the remains of their clothes. This is where hundreds of people were executed by ISIS. Now, those were babies, those were children, those were families, and the big worry now is that as the battle for Mosul itself gets underway, ISIS, feeling pressurized, might start to lash out and commit more atrocities like that. Jenna?
Benjamin Hall with some very important reporting for us today. Benjamin, thank you very much. ISIS is just one of the major foreign policy threats facing our next commander-in-chief, who will lead a military bruised by years of war overseas while also undergoing a profound cultural transformation here at home. Don't miss a special America's Election Headquarters look at how we fight, airing tomorrow at 8 and again at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, anchored by Bret Baier, featuring exclusive interviews with Defense Secretary Ash Carter and many other current and former military leaders. That's right here on the Fox News channel.
Some new polls are shedding light on the state of play in the race for the White House as we get closer to Election Day. According to the latest Pew Research national poll, Hillary Clinton is holding a 6-point lead over Donald Trump, 46 to 40% in a 4-way survey. All 4 of the best-known candidates included. According to a new Quinnipiac University swing state poll, Trump edges Clinton in Georgia 44 to 43%. In Iowa, they are flat out tied, 44% each. In North Carolina, Clinton leads Trump by 4 points, 47 to 43%. And in Virginia, Clinton leads Trump by 12 points, 50 to 38%. Let's talk about the race with David Webb, Fox News contributor and host of the David Webb Show on Sirius XM Patriot. Rick Ungar is also with us, Democratic strategist, Forbes.com senior political contributor, and co-host of Steele and Ungar on Sirius XM. So of those individual state races that we just talked about, any one of them stand out to you as a big surprise?
Well, I'll tell you the things that I'm looking at right now. North Carolina, I think, is critical. There's no real path, I don't think, for Mr. Trump if he can't win that. But I'll tell you what they did not publish today. There is data out on what's happening in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I find that incredibly important. It appears that Hillary Clinton has a sizable lead in the early voting in those areas. Pennsylvania, to me, without Pennsylvania, there is no roadmap for Mr. Trump. I think that is going to be the critical state this time.
But you would expect the suburbs of Philadelphia to be a stronghold for Hillary Clinton. It's in the outlying areas of that very big state, the coal country, where Donald Trump is expected to do well.
Yeah, and as Philadelphia goes, that matters for Clinton. But then you go north, you go to Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Lehigh Valley, that's had an increase in population. Work your way out to Harrisburg, another town that went bankrupt, and out even around Pittsburgh. So you're talking about a battle in Pennsylvania. But I will say this about Georgia. Georgia tends to come home in the closing days of a race. I'm not as concerned about that. South Carolina closes for Trump. Carolina, North Carolina is a battle. Iowa's a surprise here. Iowa typically is going to lean to the Democrats, and that's a tight race. The polling in this race on the national level, that may trend 4 to 6 points in that range. But the battleground states and the changes in population and voters, I think that's where Hillary Clinton has serious concerns.
But the race has actually been getting tighter in the last week.
It has, the national numbers. But there's, some anomalies that are fascinating. It has gotten tighter with some of the better known polls, but I never believed she was ahead 12 points. You know, I don't care what the ABC poll said. What I find interesting, the IBD poll, which has had it, close within a point or two. Today, for the first time, it's showing a +3 for Clinton. That's actually compelling because that's a 10-day rolling average of the same voters. I have to say, taking off any political hat, it's getting very hard for me to see how Trump pulls this off.
There are, though, undecided voters out there, which surprises me, frankly, because both of these candidates are so polarizing and so well known. But there are people who still have not decided how they're going to pull the lever or punch the button.
Yeah, and the fact is there is a hidden voting bloc out there that neither campaign can truly identify. That's where the energy comes into play and the voting, the electorate comes into play. There are people voting against candidates, not necessarily for a candidate, but there are a lot of people voting against the political class and voting against the failures of government over the years. They may see Clinton as a redux 1990, and they see Trump as a potential change agent. Those are factors that come in, and those are the undetermined factors.
I actually agree with that. I have come to agree that there is definitely a hidden Trump vote out there. The question is, how large is it? I don't think it's as large as some might think, but it's there.
Rick Ungar, David Webb. Good to get you on. Last time we got covered up by a speech. So
great TV happened today.
Good to have you guys here. Thanks very much.
Former federal prosecutor joins us. Doug Burns is a defense attorney and former prosecutor. We don't have any video of what happened inside the courtroom. Fred, you don't in federal cases. But we did learn that the lawyer for the Bundys was so moved that he was yelling at the judge to release his client. He actually had to be restrained by marshals, and he was arrested. I mean, this all happened after the ruling. Why is this such a stunning defeat for the government?
Well, a couple things. First of all, not only was he arrested, Janet, he was tased repeatedly. I mean, this is why I don't do criminal defense work. I mean, I don't want to get tased. But let me tell you why. It was a defeating defeat for the government for a couple reasons. I mean, I think this was an issue of jury nullification. The evidence against him seemed pretty strong. But I think part of what people forget is out west, it's all about guns. I mean, if you've ever been to the Cody Museum in Cody, Wyoming, you realize how much of a part of our culture the firearm is. And these people's DNA out west are people who kind of whose ancestors braved unbelievable elements to move out there. They take their guns and their land very seriously, and that's what I think you saw.
Doug, federal prosecutors took 2 weeks to present their case. They had on display more than 30 guns seized after the standoff.
Yep.
An FBI agent testified that 16,000 plus live rounds and nearly 1,700 spent casings were found. And they couldn't win this case when it came to weapons charges. The defense says it's the Constitution. The Constitution won. What do you think?
Well, right. The defense, working off of Fred's point, I mean, they cited the First Amendment, the right to protest, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. But Fred's making a different point, which I agree with, which is regionalism. In other words, I've been in cases like this as a federal prosecutor, tax protester cases, even in the Northeast region. And the reality is that regionalism, states' rights, local rights versus the big bad ogre, the federal government. And a lot of people who make up that jury pool are very much in tune with that type of thinking. And then just add in, obviously, the absolutely critical issue about the Second Amendment, and you get a verdict like this. It was a little surprising, but at the same time, jurors are made up of citizens from that region.
And that's what the government said, though. They felt that they needed to bring the case, present it to the people, and the people made their ruling. There is another case, Fred, and our viewers probably remember this. The reason why we know about the Bundy brothers is there was a case in Nevada, and they're still facing charges there. Now, according to the attorney for Eamon Bundy, they think because they got an acquittal in Oregon that he will also be acquitted in Nevada. What do you think?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, that's a legal question that the judge in Nevada will make a determination before they go to trial as to whether or not the evidence of the acquittal of a separate crime in a different set of circumstances would be relevant in this case. And I'm not so sure that would come in as much as if I was a prosecutor, I'd want it in. And I think the last thing all this kind of ties into out west, which I think is more prevalent than here, is kind of a distrust of the government. And, you know, and Doug's right. People don't like the government. And I had a federal judge who didn't like the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I had a tax case in front of him. Trial started April 15th. Well, you all know how that case went.
It is timing is everything,
not good
right,
for me.
Doug?
Yes, no, timing is everything. But again, let me talk about the second case, because I've seen a lot of situations, and I'm not editorializing, where people mishandicap. They're like, wow, we just won this huge acquittal. Well, if you take at face value that it was somewhat surprising, somewhat stunning, my advice is let's not get too overconfident. The second case is a totally separate matter, totally separate case. Somebody died, if I'm not mistaken, in that matter. So I think you got to just, you know, I wouldn't prejudge that case in Nevada.
It'll be one we'll definitely watch. Doug, Fred, great to have you both. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.
By now, you've heard the talking points about immigration. Donald Trump says build a wall. Hillary Clinton says reform the system and welcome the next generation of Americans. But what do those words mean to people who live and work along our southern border? Casey Stiegel visited with some of them. He joins us live from our Dallas bureau. Casey.
Hey, John, I'll tell you what they told me. This is not about rhetoric. This is not talking heads. For the people who live and work down there, it's extremely personal. We met up with a farmer down in McAllen, Texas. His sprawling land butts right up against the Rio Grande River. As you know, water is all that separates the two countries in this particular part of Texas. His name is Frank Schuster, and he says drugs and illegal immigrants are constantly being smuggled in across his property, and he's fed up. Schuster also told me about major safety concerns, saying the smuggler traffic is not only increasing, but the criminals are becoming more brazen. He says he's supporting Donald Trump, not necessarily his wall or mass deportation plan, but rather securing the border first and controlling who is coming in.
If Hillary's plan is to continue what we have right now, I can't take that. I don't think that's good for our country.
Secretary Hillary Clinton says she'd like to focus on creating a pathway to citizenship within her first 100 days in office. Many Republicans have called it nothing more than amnesty, but Clinton says Trump's plan would rip families apart, and she'd rather give people the tools they need to succeed in this country, people like Marco Malagan, who came to America illegally.
I still can be a good citizen. I can be a great American citizen. You know, I can you know, make businesses. I can educate my family. I can make sure that my family goes, you know, and contributes to society.
Now, there is one thing that it appears Clinton and Trump do agree on, and that is background checks, criminal background checks for anyone coming in, refugees or people sneaking across the border. And if they don't pass, if they have violent criminal histories, then they would be immediately deported. So we'll have to see who wins the election and what happens with the contentious topic of immigration, John.
Yeah, one of the thorniest issues out there. Casey Stiegel.
It is.
Thank you. Mr. Trump returning to the Granite State where he scored his first primary victory, launching him on a path to the Republican nomination. Later, he is heading to Maine and Iowa. That's where Hillary Clinton is campaigning today after appearing yesterday in North Carolina with First Lady Michelle Obama, the Democrats' star surrogate. As President Obama leaves the White House later today for a Clinton event in the all-important state of Florida. We have Fox team coverage. Mike Emanuel standing by on the Clinton campaign. But we begin with Ed Henry. He has the latest on the fallout from WikiLeaks live in Washington. Ed.
John, good to see you. You're certainly right that there has been a lot of fallout. We're now in round 21 of John Podesta's emails being spilled out by WikiLeaks. There's been particular fallout, not just for Hillary Clinton, but Bill Clinton, the former president. Revelations about just how much money he's been raking in as a former president. This memo leaking out about the so-called Bill Clinton Inc. in terms of how the Clinton Foundation donors have also been hit up for money to go to Bill Clinton in the form of highly paid speeches, consulting contracts, all of that. And everyone wondering, how did this all happen? How was John Podesta hacked in the first place? All of these secrets leaking out of the Clinton world. And we're getting our first glimpse from this new batch of emails today. It appears that in March of this year, John Podesta received an email suggesting that maybe someone had gotten into his Gmail account improperly in Ukraine. It turns out it was a phishing exercise. You know all about these, where someone pretends they've gotten into your account, you change your password, and then they really do get in. You can see from this graphic here, he got an email saying, "Hi, John, someone just used your password to try to sign into your Google account. Location, Ukraine." Someone from the IT team named Charles, IT team with the Clinton camp, said, "John, you need to change your password immediately. It is absolutely imperative that it is done ASAP." Unfortunately, Podesta listened, and then it turned out to be a phishing exercise, not a real exercise. Also trouble for Hillary Clinton in terms of how she flip-flopped on that Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Look at this email from Robbie Mook, the Clinton campaign manager, trying to do a call and saying, "Hey, gang, should we do a small call with us just tomorrow morning to decide on a united point of view on trade, decide who should call whom and gather what info we can on a call with HRC to argue our united case?" Seems like the most efficient path to getting her locked into something. That's the significant part there at the end. The idea that she was flipping and flopping and even her staff was having trouble locking her into a position. And then finally, deliberations back and forth about using the case of Eric Garner in New York. I cannot breathe. You remember that infamous case where he died, and Clinton aides are going back and forth on using this as a political issue in the campaign. Well, his surviving daughter, Erica Garner, now tweeting about this, saying, among other things, quote, "I'm troubled by the revelation that you in this campaign actually discussed using Eric Garner. Why would you want to use my dad?" And so you can see how troublesome this is for the Clinton campaign. All campaigns, Democrats, Republicans, are using different issues, going back and forth with deliberations. But this is the first time we've seen those deliberations spill out in real time, John.
And Ed, just breaking as you've been speaking, and this may be related, Jason Chaffetz, who heads the House Oversight Committee, is putting out there that the FBI has decided to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email situation. They say new emails have come to light. One has to assume that that is a result of these WikiLeaks email revelations.
Yeah, I mean, look, in recent days, we've seen all kinds of examples of the deliberations back and forth between Clinton staffers about what they knew, what they didn't know. And we don't know, obviously, what specific email they may have looked at. But just in the last couple of weeks with the Judicial Watch lawsuit, one of their many lawsuits against Hillary Clinton, there have also been new State Department-related emails that have come out. Some of the FBI documents from their investigation have come out. And there has been a lot of word here in Washington that they're at the medium to high level of agents throughout the Bureau have been frustrated with James Comey, the FBI director, not moving forward with criminal charges against Hillary Clinton, and that's why, in addition to WikiLeaks, why we're seeing various FBI documents, other emails spilling out. So we're going to have to pin down exactly what caused all of this. But look, a lot of people have been talking about, well, the question of Hillary Clinton being honest, not being honest and trustworthy is already baked into the cake. It won't really affect the final days of the campaign. Could there be another October surprise that rocks this campaign, shakes things up? John, we don't know yet. This is very early, but this could be one of those things that makes everyone say, wait a second.
This could take all kinds of interesting terms. Once again, Jason Chaffetz, who heads the House Oversight Committee, says the FBI has decided to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email situation. Ed Henry. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and read the tweet. This is what Jason Chaffetz just put out there. FBI director just informed me, quote, the FBI has learned of the existence of emails that appear to be pertinent to the investigation. Then Jason Chaffetz says, case reopened. So we're looking to confirm this through the FBI and others just to make sure we have an understanding of what exactly is happening. The timing, of course, is crucial. Here we are just days before voting day, although there's a lot of early voting happening in many key states. The timing matters. So we're going to check this out. In the meantime, Hillary Clinton is in Iowa, hoping to boost her numbers there as polls show her gaining on Donald Trump. Mrs. Clinton holding 2 early vote rallies in Iowa as President Obama heads to another key battleground state. We have our senior political correspondent, Mike Emanuel, is live from Chappaqua, New York, with more. Mike.
Well, hi, Jenna. Yeah, Hillary Clinton is returning to Iowa, which is known for being significant at the start of presidential campaigns and now meaningful at the end. Clinton is on her way to battleground Iowa, a purple state. A small state, only has 6 electoral votes, but if it turns out to be a close race, Clinton and her aides know it could be one of the 10 or so states to decide the election. The Real Clear Politics average of recent polls in the Hawkeye state reveals a very close contest, with Donald Trump holding a slight edge, 41.7 to 40.3. Today, the Clinton campaign is out with a new ad with President Obama talking about what is at stake on November 8th. It was the president's wife, First Lady Michelle Obama, making the case for Clinton in battleground North Carolina yesterday. Mrs. Obama says Clinton is qualified, experienced, and now it's up to her supporters to do their part.
If Hillary doesn't win this election, that will be on us. It will be because we did not stand with her. It will be because we did not vote for her. And that is exactly what her opponent is hoping will happen. That's the strategy, to make this election so dirty and ugly that we don't want any part of it.
We've got breaking news from the Clinton campaign in terms of where the candidate is going to invest her time and energy much of next week. 3 of them are not surprises. Monday in Ohio, Tuesday in Florida, Thursday in North Carolina. The surprise is Wednesday in Arizona, which is typically a Republican state. Jenna?
Mike, thank you very much. Mike, we'll be back to you to see if there's any sort of reaction from the Clinton camp on this breaking news that the FBI has reopened their investigation. Ed Henry's back with us. We just goodbye, Ed, for just a moment because
hello again.
Thank you. It's nice to have you back with us. As now we have more information about the fallout from these WikiLeaks documents and the reopening of this case. What have you learned?
A big deal, and we've just confirmed this at Fox News. We have a copy of the letter. I have it right here from James Comey, the FBI director, sending this to Congress, that the criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, is back on. What is key here is that he is saying in the letter to top chairman and chairwoman on Capitol Hill, quote, in connection with an unrelated case, the FBI has learned of the existence of emails that appear to be pertinent to the investigation. This is James Comey at the FBI. I am writing to inform you that the investigative team briefed me on this yesterday, and I agreed the FBI should take appropriate investigative steps designed to allow investigators to review these emails to determine whether they contain classified information, as well as to assess their importance to our investigation. Although the FBI cannot yet assess whether or not this material may be significant, and I cannot predict how long it will take us to complete this additional work, I believe it is important to update your committees about our efforts in light of my previous testimony. A couple of things going on here. Obviously, number one, James Comey may be trying to cover his back a bit here. He is under intense pressure from various members of Congress, people in the public saying, what in the world happened with this investigation, as more and more emails and questions spill out, number one. Number two, what is the fallout for Hillary Clinton? I mean, when James Comey, the director of the FBI, says, I don't know how long this will take to clear all of this up, Does that mean it's going to be done in a week and there'll be good news for Hillary Clinton or bad news 3 days or so before the election? Or will he hold this over past the election as they go through this? If Hillary Clinton is then elected president, I use the word if, she would immediately be under a cloud yet again as president-elect. If she were to lose the election, I use the word if, let's be clear, you would undoubtedly have Clinton supporters saying this is dirty pool and that the FBI came in the final weeks of the campaign. This is exactly what James Comey was trying to avoid months and months ago, saying he was working on his own calendar, he was not paying attention to the election calendar. And yet here we are, a lot of questions for James Comey about why criminal charges against Hillary Clinton were not filed after that incredible public statement he made a couple of months back, you'll remember, suggesting there were all kinds of problems and misstatements and whatnot, and then said, but we're not going to bring charges. Now he's saying we've gotten the existence of new emails that appear to be pertinent to our investigation. Let's remember, as a criminal investigation, Jenna, and this is probably the worst possible news for the Clinton campaign under 2 weeks before Election Day, Jenna.
Ed, you've asked Mrs. Clinton specifically about her use of a private server. And one of the things that the Clinton camp had said repeatedly during the time that the FBI investigation was ongoing is that the candidate herself was not under investigation. And it was a matter of semantics.
Yes.
So based on the news as it breaks now, are we in a period where a candidate for president is under investigation now by the FBI?
Yeah, it's hard to read it any other way. I mean, I think you're absolutely right to caution that James Comey is saying, maybe a key line here in fairness to Secretary Clinton, quote, although the FBI cannot yet assess whether or not this material may be significant, and I cannot predict how long, we're looking at it. The bottom line is, as Jason Chaffetz first disclosed, Republican on Capitol Hill, this investigation is back on in some form. And I was smiling as you were talking about how they said, the Clinton campaign, oh, she wasn't under investigation. Let's be clear about the facts. You're absolutely right to point to that. The Clinton campaign told us for the longest time in 2015, this is just a security review by the FBI. It is not, they kept pushing back on us. It's not a criminal investigation. This was a criminal investigation. Let's use facts. And the fact that James Comey came out and said, I decided not to pursue back then criminal charges meant it was a criminal investigation with potential, I underline the word potential, criminal charges. He decided not to do that over the summer and into the fall. Now, 11 days before the election, he's saying, hold on, folks, we are reopening this, we are taking another look at it, and obviously we're all now going to try to figure out what is the existence of emails that appear to be pertinent to the investigation. We've been digging through, as you know, all of these WikiLeaks documents. Has there been new information there that raises eyebrows and questions about the Clinton camp and their handling of the email scandal? Certainly. But I have not seen in the WikiLeaks digging new emails that show there's classified information that they didn't disclose previously. But he specifically talks about that. Director Comey, I agree that the FBI should take appropriate investigative steps designed to allow investigators to review these new emails to determine whether they contain classified information. I think it's also that word, whether they contain classified information, as well as assess their importance. So my point is, did someone else come forward, a whistleblower or someone, and say, wait a second, either within the FBI or somewhere else, we found some more emails? Did they talk to the IT company out in Colorado? Because I don't know that this is necessarily related to WikiLeaks, which we've been talking a lot about. But look, what we do know, Jenna, is there is intense frustration. And we've been hearing this all over Washington, some of it whispered, some of it spilled out in the open. Intense frustration within James Comey's agency about what's going on there and why he didn't pursue charges. So did somebody come forward?
And so let's be clear about that, because we're talking so much about WikiLeaks, we don't know the source of this, this specific part that James Comey is referencing. And I think it's only worth it to underscore to our viewers. John's with us. We're also going to have another guest with us in just a moment. The timing of this and the pressure that the FBI is under to issue a letter like this, just a little over 10 days before Election Day, one would have to think, Ed, that there's something very specific that moved them to do so. Otherwise, if it was a gray area, to go out on a limb and do this, it would I can't imagine that.
You're absolutely right. And pardon me, because I'm looking down at my email to see if we're getting any more on that. And we really only have the letter from James Comey to Congress. So I want to be absolutely transparent with our viewers that that's all we know right now. And we're obviously digging for more. But look, I mean, there's another element to this in terms of the politics, but also investigatively outside of politics. Think about what happened last week, this revelation by the Wall Street Journal that Terry McAuliffe, the governor of Virginia, who himself is under separate FBI investigation at this moment, by the way, helped raise money for the spouse of a high-ranking FBI official. And that spouse ended up not winning the political race in Virginia, but it was well over $400,000 raised. And that has just raised more questions outside and inside the FBI about what has been happening, because Terry McAuliffe, as you know, as the governor of Virginia, is one of the closest friends of both Bill and Hillary Clinton. We have no evidence that the Clintons directed that, but this is just adding to the intrigue and the questions about whether there's conflicts of interest here and what in the world happened. So I want to answer your question directly about why would James Comey do this so close to the election. Well, look, he is under intense pressure right now, and he went into this criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton, and let's call it that because that's what it is, as seen as this white knight in Washington that Democrats and Republicans said is tough, stands his ground, will follow the facts. And after what's happened between what I just mentioned about Terry McAuliffe, what happened with not pursuing charges despite evidence suggesting maybe there should have been charges, James Comey is under intense pressure, has been criticized within his own building at the FBI. And for him to act now, there's going to be a lot of hue and cry, I anticipate, from Democrats saying you are giving in to pressure and you are going to improperly influence the selection. You can bet Donald Trump is going to say the opposite.
Well,
I can already tell you his script.
Well, we'll see.
They should do
We're
that.
awaiting him at a rally in New Hampshire, so that should be interesting. This news is breaking. We're awaiting Donald Trump. Ed, I'm just going to give you a second because there's a lot more news coming in. I want to share this with our viewers. Chad Program is our producer in Capitol Hill, and he apparently has spoken with the Oversight Committee Chairman Jason Chaffetz, and he says word of this, Jason Chaffetz, the congressman, says the word of this reopening of the investigation came out of the blue. He says he interprets this as a reopening of the case as the FBI sees pertinent material here and is devoting time and resources to the effort. So that's from Chad Program, this coming out of the blue.
And it is absolutely astounding that this has come up in the way that it has. Joining us now with more, Jamie Weinstein, senior writer at the Daily Caller, host of the Jamie Weinstein Show podcast. Jamie, you got the sense when James Comey gave that extraordinary news conference calling an end to the Hillary Clinton email investigation, he was really trying to drive a silver stake right through the heart of this investigation, saying it's all done. We've spent countless man hours on this. We've devoted all kinds of resources. And although she made mistakes, we don't think any prosecutor would bring criminal charges. Now they've got some kind of unspecified new information developed, he says, as a result of a separate investigation, and it's causing them to reopen the case. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I only know as much as what I've heard from on this newscast. It was a wow moment when I heard it through my earpiece here. I can only imagine that he would only open this case if there was significant evidence that came forward 10 days before an election for the presidency of the United States. It's hard to imagine he would do it unless he saw something that was eye-popping that came in front of him, because this is the type of thing that can shape elections. This is an October surprise that wasn't planned by any campaign. So to insert himself in the election at this late date like this, you would have to imagine that he saw something that was pretty alarming.
All right, we are going to continue doing some digging. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Jamie, we will be back with you more on this astounding revelation that the FBI has decided to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton and the email server. More on that just ahead. A Fox News alert, and once again the astounding news that the FBI has decided to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton and the missing emails on her private server. Let's get back to Jamie Weinstein from the Daily Caller, also host of the Jamie Weinstein podcast. The New York Post is out with an article that might be related, might not, but it says that Clinton's missing personal emails might actually be out there, that a technician at Platte River Networks the agency that she had hired, or her husband had hired to handle that personal email server, transferred all of those documents onto a Google email address, but the FBI never subpoenaed Google to find out if those documents were available. So, this could be part of the new developments, the new information the FBI says it has developed with regard to the Clinton email investigation.
Yeah, that could be the angle. I was thinking that perhaps, through these leaks, they discovered that perhaps it showed that Hillary Clinton knew more about what was going on than she said during her FBI interview. Maybe they have a perjury case there. There's so many different angles that this could be. But as I said earlier, it's hard to believe that the FBI James Comey would open this case 10 days before the election unless there was something there that was significant. He just wouldn't do this for fun. I don't think he would try to insert himself in the election this way, just for kicks and giggles. There must be something significant there for him to make such a drastic and significant injection into the political sphere.
The letter from James Comey to the chairman of various committees on Capitol Hill is only 3 paragraphs, but I'll go back to a line that our Ed Henry read earlier. He says, although the FBI cannot yet assess whether or not this material may be significant, and I cannot predict how long it will take to complete this additional work, I believe it's important to update your committees. Well, you just made the point. I mean, he wouldn't do this if they didn't think there was a serious amount of smoke in this new information that they've developed.
Yeah, I can't imagine him interjecting himself unless he saw something that was particularly significant. Of course, that letter, he's going to hedge all he can in that type of a letter. When I originally was coming on here, John, I was going to talk about all the electric metrics. And it looked bad for Donald Trump. He didn't see how he could actually pull together a coalition to win this thing. This is the type of thing that might shift people's opinions. This might put him back in this electoral game. And even if he doesn't win, we're looking possibly at a news cycle for months where if Hillary Clinton wins this election, you have a potential out there that she may be indicted as the president-elect of the United States. So this is a news story, what we're learning today, that could either shape the election or shape what happens after the election. And we don't know where this is going to lead. But it is going to, I think, going to captivate news programs for a long time to come.
Carl Cameron, who is covering the Trump campaign, says that he will talk about this reopened FBI investigation at his first event, which is actually scheduled to get underway any minute now. Again, as you said, it's for his campaign. It is the perhaps the best news they could have asked for, a reopening of the investigation into Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely. And, I on the podcast you mentioned, I interviewed a couple weeks ago Rick Wilson, who said he knew of 2 major oppo drops out there for Hillary Clinton's side. You have to imagine if they have anything themselves of an October surprise, that they're going to try to drop something to change the news cycle. So we might see a very, very messy 10 days until this election, with Donald Trump harping on this new FBI investigation and the Clinton campaign throwing out there whatever oppo research they have left against Donald Trump.
And let's not,
this is going to be a wild 10 days to go.
Let's not forget that about 40% of the ballots in this election are expected to have been early ballots.
Exactly.
So a lot of people in this country have already voted, already made their decision. Jamie Weinstein. Jamie, thank you.
As we're taking General Flynn in Manchester, New Hampshire, a reminder, we'll go back there when Donald Trump steps to the podium. He is expected, as John just mentioned, to talk about the reopening of this investigation. Also want to set the stage for you that around 2:15 Eastern, so in about 45 minutes, we expect Hillary Clinton to hold a rally. She's going to be doing that in Iowa. So these candidates are off and running. They're moving around. In the meantime, we're sorting through some of the news and getting some fresh reaction. Ed Henry's back with us with some new information from the Hill. Ed?
Jenna, good to talk to you again. The House Judiciary Chair Bob Goodlatte has now put out a statement talking about the impact and the significance of this, saying in part, quote, the FBI's decision to reopen its investigation into Secretary Clinton reinforces what the House Judiciary panel has been saying for months. The more we learn about Secretary Clinton's use of a private email server, the clearer it becomes that she and her associates committed wrongdoing and jeopardized national security. Now that the FBI has reopened the matter, it must conduct the investigation with impartiality and thoroughness. The American people deserve no less, and no one should be above the law. A strong statement from the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee. That's the kind of investigation, frankly, that Democrats and Republicans were expecting from James Comey as the FBI director in round one here. And the fact that he's under such intense pressure from people inside the FBI itself, saying that they feel like they were that this thing fell apart at the end, and they do not understand why charges were not brought. This is now the worst of all possible worlds for the director of the FBI. Supposed to be a non-political position. It's a term that goes longer than presidential terms. So just so that Democrats and Republicans are not supposed to be influencing the FBI director. But you see him there. Remember, this is the man in the Bush administration, for context, who stood up to President Bush's inner circle when they were pressuring him to continue the wireless surveillance program that he believed should not continue. He would not sign off on it. Then, with the Justice Department, not FBI director, stood up to the White House counsel, stood up there with the Attorney General John Ashcroft and said, "I'm not doing this." And that is why a lot of Democrats and Republicans were saying at the beginning of this criminal investigation that James Comey is the perfect person to sort through all this. When it all ended without charges, there have been a lot of people raising eyebrows and saying, no, this was not done thoroughly. Now he has a second bite of the apple, but to do it 11 days before an election is breathtaking, frankly, Jenna.
We'll go back to the cliche. We can't help it. Timing is everything. Ed, back to you in Washington, D.C. as news warrants. In the meantime, I've been hopping around different Twitter accounts for the Clinton campaign. It might not surprise you that we have no reaction on social media from the Clinton campaign. Our Jennifer Griffin, who is traveling with the Clinton campaign, has reached out for reaction. No response as of yet. What is the White House saying? Well, the White House is now deferring to the FBI. That's where things stand now, about 1:30 Eastern time. It's changing by the moment. We'll be right back with more happening now. Fox News alerted back with the breaking news that the FBI is reopening its investigation into Secretary Clinton and her use of a private email server. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan now just coming out with a statement, and it's also newsworthy, and I'm just going to read it straight to you. He says, yet again, Hillary Clinton has nobody but herself to blame. She was entrusted with some of our nation's most important secrets, and she betrayed that trust by carelessly mishandling highly classified information. He goes on to say this: I renew my call for the Director of National Intelligence to suspend all classified briefings for Secretary Clinton until this matter is fully resolved. Again, that from Speaker Ryan. We wanted to get some legal perspective in all of this. Bob Bianchi, criminal defense attorney, former head county prosecutor as well, is joining us on the phone, a friend of the show. Bob, we wanted somebody with a legal background to just talk about the significance of getting this sort of announcement from the FBI. What do you think?
Jenna, this is very highly unusual and a little disconcerting, at least from my standpoint as a former prosecutor, about the manner in which we discuss with the public investigations. The first thing is that those investigations should remain confidential for two reasons. One, for the protection of the investigation itself, but more importantly, to protect those who are innocent of things that are being investigated. So very much like when there was a decision that she was not going to be indicted, there was a press conference discussing her quote-unquote recklessness, and I agree with Director Comey's analysis of the law on that particular end because of a very high burden for the prosecution to show. It is amazing to me that during an election season, where typically 60 to 90 days prior to an election, government officials do not release information about investigations, subpoenas, so as not to influence the outcome of an election.
But wait a minute, Bob. Our viewers must be listening to this and just wondering, now, wait a minute, this isn't just your average citizen. This is somebody that's running to be leader of the free world. Shouldn't we know if the FBI has some additional questions on that matter?
Well, Jenna, there are rules and regulations, and I don't think that I get your point that it's an issue of public importance. But specifically with regard to elections, typically prosecutorial agencies, and I believe, and I haven't had the time to research this, it applies also to the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice, are not to do this so as not to affect and influence the outcome of an election. If there is a crime that has been committed, it can be dealt with afterwards. So the timing of this becomes very, very, because let's assume, and here, Jenna, think about it this way. We know she used a private email server. We know that there was confidential information on it. I don't know how that changes Director Comey's legal analysis with respect to the case at all. Those things have already been proven. So I'm very suspicious of the timing of this, and I don't think it's fair to anybody, a public official or a private official. And I'm saying this is a prosecutor, not as a Democrat or a Republican.
Your point's well taken, Bob, because if any of us were up for a job and suddenly it was announced that we were being investigated for something and then it was found that we were completely innocent of that and we didn't get that job, we'd all be upset. So your analogy is, I mean, it definitely is not lost on us that there's the significance of that, the announcement from the FBI, as well as questions as to what exactly was the catalyst that for not only this letter, but for the FBI to make this announcement on this day ahead of voting day. So, Bob, we appreciate that. You made our conversation that much richer. We have a lot more questions than answers right now. And, of course, we'll have Bob back on when we continue to look through the legality of all this. By the way, awaiting Donald Trump in New Hampshire, John. That'll be interesting. We expect him moments from now.
We understand he is going to make political hay out of these revelations. Prosecutor friend of mine just wrote me and said the FBI doesn't investigate maybe not cases a second time. Whatever it is bad. Joining us now, Brad Gerstmann. He is a Democratic strategist and founding partner of Gotham Government Relations. Also with us, Mark Larson, a conservative radio talk show host in Southern California. So, Brad, if you're the Clinton campaign and all of a sudden your candidate is now under a reopened FBI investigation, what do you do? What do you say?
Well, listen, if you have to get out there and you have to talk about the fact that, the FBI has already rendered a decision in this case, and that if new facts come, that you're welcoming an open and fair investigation. But truth be known, I mean, this is politics. You know that whatever the new facts, because again, as your prior guest mentioned, the law doesn't change, but the facts may change, and apparently the FBI have new facts. Now, those facts could lead you into a million